Good morning. Welcome to today's press conference. Today we have a regular briefing on national economic performance. We are glad to have with us Mr. Linghui, National Bureau of Statistics spokesperson. He will brief you on the national economic performance in July and take your questions. Now, opening remarks from Mr. Fu. Friends from the media. Good morning. First of all, I will give you a briefing on economic performance in July and take your questions. In July, China's economic growth was in line with expectations. In July, faced with growing external uncertainties and domestic COVID-19 epidemic and flooding situations, under the strong leadership of the CPC Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, all regions and departments strictly implemented the decisions made by the CPC Central Committee and the State Council and effectively carried out macroeconomic policies. The employment and prices remained generally stable. A basic equilibrium was maintained with regard to the balance of payments, and major macro indicators stayed within a reasonable range. National economy continued the momentum of stable recovery. First, on industry production, there was steady growth, and high-tech manufacturing industry demonstrated strong momentum of growth. In July, total value added of large industrial enterprises grew by 6.4% year-on-year, down by 1.9 percentage points than that of June, and higher than that of the same period in 2019 and 2020. Average two-year growth was 5.6%, up by 0.3% month-on-month. In terms of sectors, value added of mining increased by 0.6% year-on-year, that of manufacturing increased by 6.2% year-on-year, and production of supply of electricity, thermal power, gas, and water increased by 13.2% year-on-year. Value added of high-tech manufacturing and equipment manufacturing grew by 15.6% and 6.4% year-on-year respectively. Average two-year growth of 12.7% and 9.7% respectively. On products, production of new energy automobiles, industrial robots, integrated circuits, and microcomputer equipment grew by 162.7%, 42.3%, 41.3%, and 10.3% year-on-year, with the average two-year growth all exceeding 14%. Goods for basic consumption enjoyed faster growth. Production of household gas, water heater, beverage, and chemical fibers went up by 13.9%, 10.1%, and 9.3% year-on-year, respectively. By types of ownership, shows that the value added of state-holding enterprises was up by 7.2% year-on-year. Shareholding enterprises up by 7.1% year-on-year. Enterprises funded by foreign investors or visitors from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan up by 3.8% year-on-year. And that of private enterprises was up by 6.1% year-on-year. Total value added of large industrial enterprises grew by 14.4% year-on-year in the first 7 months, with an average two-year growth of 6.7%. Specifically, the value added of manufacturing of medicine and that of electrical machinery and apparatus went up by 29.3% and 26.2% year-on-year respectively. In July, a manufacturing PMI stood at 50.4%, staying above the threshold for 70 months in a row. Production and operation expectation index was 57.8%. In the first 6 months, profits made by large industry enterprises totaled 4,218.3 billion yuan, up by 66.9% year-on-year. Average two-year growth of 20.6%. Profit rate of the business revenue of large industry enterprises was 7.11%, 1.66 percentage points higher than that of the first 6 months in 2020. Second, service sector continued to recover and business revenue of enterprises grew generally fast. In July, index of services production grew by 7.8% year-on-year, down by 3.1 percentage points from June and higher than that of the same period in 2019 and 2020. Average two-year growth was 5.6%. The index services production of information transmission, software, and information technology services went up by 16.9% year-on-year. For 7 months, the index of services production grew by 19.6% year-on-year, down by 1.9 percentage points from the first 6 months. Average two-year growth was 6.5%. By main industries, the sub-index of services production of 80 industries all maintained positive year-on-year growth. The index of services production of information transmission, software, and information technology services went up by 21.6% year-on-year. In the first 6 months, business revenue of services enterprises above the designated size grew by 29.5% year-on-year, with an average two-year growth of 11.1%. The business revenue of information transmission, software and information technology services and that of scientific research and technology services grew by 25.7% and 23.9% year-on-year respectively. Average two-year growth of 17.4% and 12.1%. In July, business activity index for services stood at 52.5%, up by 0.2 percentage points from June, staying above this threshold for 70 months in a row. Three, market sales continue to grow and online retail sales grew rapidly. In July, total retail sales of consumer goods reached 3,492.5 billion yuan, up by 8.5% year-on-year, down by 3.6 percentage points from June and higher than that of the same period in 2019 and 2020. Average two-year growth reached 3.6%. Month-on-month growth went down by 0.13%. In the first 7 months, total retail sales of consumer goods reached 24,682.9 billion yuan, up by 20.7% year-on-year. Average two-year growth of 4.3%. Analyzed by different areas, retail sales of consumer goods in urban areas reached 3,037.9 billion yuan, up by 8.4% year-on-year. In rural areas, reached 454.7 billion yuan, up by 8.8% year-on-year. Goodbye consumption patterns. Retail sales of goods was up by 7.8% year-on-year. Revenue of catering was up by 14.3% year-on-year. By categories, of the 18 categories of goods by large enterprises, 16 categories maintained positive year-on-year growth of retail sales. Daily consumer goods and upgraded consumer goods witnessed good momentum of growth. Retail sales of goods by large enterprises, year-on-year growth rates of grain, oil, and food, beverage, and daily necessities went up by 11.3%, 20.8%, and 13.1% respectively. Those of sports and recreational articles, cultural and office appliances, and gold, silver, and jewelry went up by 20.7%, 14.8%, and 14.3% year-on-year respectively. Online retail sales was up by 21.9% year-on-year. Online retail sales of physical goods was up by 70.6% year-on-year. 4. Investment in fixed assets was generally stable and the growth of investment in manufacturing accelerated. In the first 7 months, investment in fixed assets, excluding rural households, reached 30,253.3 billion yuan, up by 10.3% year-on-year, 2.3 percentage points lower from the first 6 months, with an average two-year growth of 4.3%. Month-on-month growth in July was 0.18%. In the first 7 months, investment in infrastructure was up by 4.6% year-on-year, average two-year growth of 0.9% and 1.5 percentage points lower for the first 6 months. Manufacturing up by 17.3% year-on-year, average two-year growth of 3.1% and 1.1 percentage points higher from the first 6 months. Real estate development up by 12.7% year-on-year, average two-year growth of 8% and 0.2 percentage point lower than the first 6 months. Floor space of commercial buildings sold was up by 21.5% year-on-year, and total sales of commercial buildings was up by 30.7% year-on-year. Investment in high-tech industries grew by 20.7% year-on-year, average two-year growth of 14.2%. Investment in high-tech manufacturing and high-tech services grew by 27.1% and 8.8% year-on-year, respectively. In terms of high-tech manufacturing, investment in manufacturing of aerospace vehicle and equipment, of computers and office equipment, and of medical equipment, measuring instruments and meters grew by 49.7%, 46.9%, and 34.9% year-on-year, respectively. The investment in e-commerce services and in research, development, and design services went up by 42.7% and 27.2% year-on-year, respectively. Investment in social sectors went up by 13.1% year-on-year, with an average two-year growth of 10.9%. Investment in health and education went up by 31.8% and 12.1% year-on-year. 5. Imports and exports of goods grew fast and trade structure continued to improve. In July, total imports and exports of goods was 3,265.7 billion yuan, up by 11.5% year-on-year. The value of exports was up by 8.1% year-on-year, and value of imports was up by 16.1%. Trade balance was 362.7 billion yuan in surplus. The first seven months, total imports and exports of goods was up by 24.5% year-on-year, and that of imports was up by 24.4% year-on-year, with 9,679.2 billion yuan of the total value. The trade structure continued to improve. In the first 7 months, exports of mechanical and electrical products grew by 25.5% year-on-year, accounting for 59% of the total of exports. Exports of general trade accounted for 61.9% of the total, 1.5 percentage points higher than the same period of the previous year. Imports and exports by private enterprises accounted for 47.9% of the total, 2.4 percentage points higher than the same period last year. 6. Employment was generally stable and urban employment continued to increase. In the first 7 months, newly increased employing people in urban areas totaled 8.22 million, completing 74.7% of the annual target. In July, the urban surveyed unemployment rate was 5.1%, 0.1 percentage point higher than June. The surveyed unemployment rate of population with local household registration was 5.1%, and that of population with non-local household registration was 5%. The surveyed unemployment rates of the population aged from 16 to 24 and from 25 to 59 were 16.2% and 4.2%. Urban surveyed unemployment in 31 major cities was 5.2%, the same as that in June. The employees of enterprises worked 47.7 hours per week on average. 7. Prices were generally stable and consumer price went up mildly. In June, consumer price index went up by 1% year-on-year, 0.1 percentage point lower than that in June, and up by 0.3% month-on-month. Prices for food, tobacco, and alcohol went down by 1.8% year-on-year, clothing up by 0.4%, housing up by 1.1%, articles and services for daily use up by 0.3%, transport and communication up by 6.9%, education, culture, and recreation up by 2.7%, medical services and healthcare up by 0.4%, and other articles and services down by 1.3%. Among the prices for food, tobacco, and alcohol, the prices for pork went up by 43.5%, fresh vegetables down by 4%, grain up by 0.7%, and fresh fruit up by 5.2%. Core CPI, excluding price of food and energy, went up by 1.3%, and increase expanded by 0.4 percentage point from June. In July, the producer prices for industrial products went by 9% year-on-year, and increase expanded by 0.2 percentage point from June. The purchasing prices for industrial producers went up by 13.1% year-on-year, the same as that in June, or up by 0.9% a month. In the first 7 months, producer prices for industrial products and purchasing prices for industrial producers increased by 5.7% and 7.9% year-on-year, respectively. In general, national economy sustained momentum of steady recovery in July. Given the continuously evolving global situation, and the combined impact of sporadic local outbreaks of COVID-19 and natural disasters, economic recovery is still unstable and uneven. At next stage, under the guidance of Xi Jinping's thought on socialism with China's characteristics for a new era, we must uphold the underlying principle of pursuing progress while ensuring stability, adhere to the overall coordination of academic, prevention, and control with economic and social development, stick to full, accurate, and comprehensive implementation of the new development philosophy, deepen the supply-side structure reforms, accelerate the building of a new development paradigm, advance the high-quality development, accurately implement the routine prevention and control measures, and to keep the economic performing within the reasonable range and promote sustainable recovery and steady and sound growth of the national economy. Now the floor is open to questions.
农业形势呢，总体稳定，夏粮呢实现了丰收，夏粮今年呢是增产2.1公斤，那么秋粮生产呢总体稳定，全年粮食丰收呢还有。规算工业呢同比增长了14.4%，2年平均增长6.7%，继续保持小快的增长。那么服务业是不断发展。1至7月份，服务业生产指数同比增长了19.6%，那么2年平均呢，增长了6.5%。二是呢，需求继续增长，投资平稳增长。1至7月份，投资呢同比增长10.3%，2年平均增长4.3%。市场销售呢保持增长。1至7月份，社零总额呢同比增长了20.7%，2年平均增长4.3%，保持基本稳定。那么进出口较快增长，1至7月份呢，货物进出口总额呢同比增长了24.5%，2年平均增长10.6%。三是就业物价总体稳定。那么1至7月份呢，全国城镇新增就业达到了882万人，全国的调查失业率平均呢为5.8%。那么居民消费价格呢同比上涨0.6%，均低于宏观调控的预期目标。4是创新发展韧性增强。那么新产业发展是向好。1至7月份呢，高技术制造业呢同比增长21.5%，2年平均增长13.1%。那么高技术产业投资呢，1至7月份同比增长了20.7%，那么2年平均增长14.2%，继续保持较快的增长。那么新产品、新业态呢迅速增长。1至7月份呢，新能源汽车、工业机器人产量同比分别增长194.9%和64.6%，实物商品网上流通额同比增长17.6%。5是新发展格局构建的持续推进，那么改革创新的持续深化，生产分配、流通、消费循环呢在改善。生产领域呢保持恢复。1至7月份呢，41个工业大类行业中呢，39个行业呢同比保持增长，其中有27个行业呢同比增速呢超过10%。那么分配领域利润和收入较快增长。那么1至6月份呢，规算工业利润同比增长66.9%，2年平均增长20.6%。1至6月份上半年的财政收入呢同比增长20.8%。流通领域呢总体活跃。1至7月份呢，货运量、客运量呢同比增长21.7%和7.8%。消费领域呢逐步回暖。1至7月份呢，限额以上单位18个商品类别当中，商品零售额呢同比增速呢均超过10%。当然也要看到呢，全球疫情呢持续演变，世界经济复苏呢不确定性增加，国内经济恢复呢仍面临不少挑战，生产制约因素增加，一些结构性问题需要突出。下阶段呢，还是要按照党中央、国务院的决策部署，坚持稳中求进的工作总基调，坚持常态化疫情防控不放松，做好宏观政策大头提调节，科学精准实施宏观政策，加快改革创新，推进转型升级，保持经济运行在合理区间，推动经济高质量发展。谢谢。
好，你继续提问。
近期新冠疫情变异毒株在各地爆发，一些地方疫情反复，受疫情影响，一些行业恢复延迟。请问，近期新冠疫情对我们经济带来了哪些影响？具体的表现是不好。对于持续受到疫情冲击的行业，是否考虑延长或者加大政策扶持？在疫情和洪涝灾害双重影响下，应该如何研判我国下半年经济走势？全年经济增长目标如何保证？谢谢。
谢谢您的提问。其实呢，7月份呢，在面临高温、暴雨、部分地区局部疫情散发这种状况，主要呢，经济总体的速度有所疲弱。 但怎么看呢？经济运行呢还是保持在主要指标呢，目前看还保持在一个合理的一个水平。那么从7月份当月来看呢，一些这个部分的这个消费领域的部分服务业方面确实有所放缓比如说这个像部分地区像河南像江苏湖南等地的社会消费民众总额呢都不同程度的比上月有所回落。还有一些这个接触性和这个聚集性的一些行业，像这个批发零售，像这个自助餐饮部分行业的增速比例上有所回落。尽管这个经济增速从当月看呢有所回落，但是怎么看呢？从经济情况看保持了基本稳定。那么从下半年情况来看呢，我们看到呢，今年的这个由于基数的情况，我们去年呢有这个经济受到疫情冲击呢，整体上基数呢是这个由低前低后高。那么受基数影响，从全年来看呢，主要经济增速呢会这个呈现这个前高后低的情况。但是从这个今年上半年的情况来看呢，从2年平均增速呢，经济的整体上还是这个保持一个加快的态势。我们看到呢，今年上半年的这个经济增长也均增长5.3%，比一度加快0.3%，其实说明了经济的这个整体是在恢复的态势。那么，综合来看呢，这个怎么看下半年呢？我经济呢，仍然会保持这个有恢复的态势，主要宏观指标呢会保持在合理区间，经济循环改善，发展质量会继续提升。那么呢，我们看到经济呢有望保持稳定增长。那么在这个供给能力一定的条件下，我们看经济运行呢，主要从需求方面来看，主要看这个3驾马车。那么从消费来看呢，下半年呢这个随着居民收入的增加消费环境的改善，居民消费呢还会继续回暖。我们看到呢，今年上半年呢，居民的人均可支配收入实际增长同比增长12%，比一季度是明显加快，这样有利于提升这个居民的消费能力。同时，我们也看到了上半年的这个全国居民的人均消费支出实际增长了17.4%，是快于居民消费这个居民收入的这个增长的速度，其实表明了居民的消费倾向在提高。那么从投资来看呢，今年是“十四五”规划的这个第1年，“十四五”规划的重大的一个项目陆续的这个推出启动建设。同时呢，这个我们看到的这个随着经济的恢复呢，制造业投资在持续的回暖。1至7月份呢，制造业投资年平均增长3.1%，比上面1到6月份加快了5.1%。那么随着我们看到这个现在制造业企业的利润保持较快的增长，同时呢，这个企业的预期呢有利于制造业的投资增长。那么从经济的情况来看呢，世界经济呢是总体在复苏德国也在复苏。那么国际货币基金组织呢预计全年的全球经济增长会增长6%。那么主要的贸易呢这个增长会保持在一个较快的水平。那么我国的工业生产在全球贸易中占有比较重要的地位。那么全球贸易的改善呢，有利于经济增长，这是第一个方面。二是呢，我们预期呢，这个主要的宏观指标呢会保持在合理区间。我们看呢，这个分析经济形势呢，不仅要看增长我们还是要看就业、物价、平均收入，从综合的情况来看经济运行的状况。那么从就业收入来看呢，随着经济恢复呢，就业优先政策呢继续显效，那么企业效益增加，居民就业稳定和收入增加呢持续，有望持续。那么从物价来看呢，农业生产呢总体稳定，工业和服务业供给能力比较强。那么保供稳价的措施有利，居民消费价格呢有望保持温和上涨。那么主要宏观指标呢保持在合理区间的可持性比较大。那么第三呢，发展的质量效益会继续改善。那么今年上半年呢，随着这个经济的恢复经济运行效益质量效益是在提升的。我们看到呢，这个随着供给侧改革的 推进呢2季度规上工业的产能利用率达到了78.4%，处于近年来的较高的一个水平。那么6月末，规模以上工业企业的资产负债率呢，同比下降了0.4个百分点。那么1到6月份呢，规上工业每百年营业收入的成本同比减少了0.98元。那么经济效益呢也是在提升。1至6月份，规上工业的利润呢同比增长了66.9%，2年平均增长20.6%。那么1至6月份财政收入呢同比增长了21.8%。那么绿色发展呢也在持续推进。1至6月份，全国单位 GDP 能耗同比下降2%，清洁能源消费占比提高了0.4个百分点。那么全国的339个地级及以上城市呢 PM2.5 的平均浓度同比下降2.9%。那么下阶段呢，随着新发展格局构建的持续推进，供给侧结构性改革呢继续深化，改革创新力度加大，发展质量持续提高。谢谢。
好，请继续提问。是 CVC 记者提问，我有2个问题。第一个问题是，请问近期针对教育行业的政策对就业，尤其是毕业生就业有什么样的影响？第二个问题是，请问近期疫情对消费有何影响？
谢谢您提问。您所关心就业和消费这样的一个情况。应该说呢，今年以来呢，就业形势呢保持了总体稳定。随着经济恢复以及就业优先政策的纵向，我们看到了整个城镇将来失业率呢整体是有所回落。那么总的来看呢，就业形势呈现以下几个特点：一是呢，新增就业呢继续扩大。那么1至7月份，全国城镇新增就业呢达到了822万人。实现这个全年目标任务呢，达到74.7%。第二呢，这个失业率呢，这个整体平稳。7月份呢，全国城镇调查失业率是5.1%，比上月略升了0.1个百分点。那么这个5.1呢，我看到呢，不仅低于上年的同期，也低于2019年同期的水平。我们知道呢，因为在7月份呢，这个由于大学毕业生呢集中进入劳动力市场，6月份到7月份之间呢，这个失业率的这个上升幅度比较大。但今年来看呢，今年7月份和6月份相比，这个失业率的上升幅度呢，比常年就是我们在说疫情前的水平还是要低的，说明就业形势呢总体是稳定的。那么其中呢，25到59岁的这个就业主体人群的失业率呢，只有4.2%，与上月是持平的。第三呢，这个我们说这个外出的一些重点群体，外出农民工的就业是总体稳定。那么2季度呢，农民工的外出务工的劳动力呢，总量是1.8亿人，基本上恢复到疫情前的水平。那么7月份呢，从这个失业率当中呢，这个外来户籍人口的失业率呢是4.7%，与上月是持平的。那么经济就业的总体恢复呢，其实主要以下几方面特点。主要的原因呢，一个是经济呢逐步恢复，用工需求增加。我们看到呢，2季度呢 GDP 2年平均增长5.5%，1季度加快了0.5%。二是呢，新动能成长状态，灵活性动在提价的。那么随着双创这个快速发展，共享经济、平台经济快速成长，新业态新模式不断涌现，就业的带动在增加，像快递小哥、网络主播、网约车司机等灵活就业渠道增加。第三呢是就业优先政策持续显效，那么持续推进企业的减负转导和就业，实施高校毕业生就业创业促进计划，有序引导农民工就业外出就业，完善灵活就业人员的权益保障，都有利于促进就业稳定。那么尽管看到就业形势总体稳定，但是也看到就业还面临不少压力。那么今年来看呢，全年的大学毕业生呢是909万，同时呢，这个由于 国外疫情的一些影响，那么我们一些出国留学的人在回国就业，加大了这个就业的压力。我们同时呢，这个在结构上来看，一些企业呢还面临这个招生难的问题，尤其是沿海的企业。7月份呢，我们看到，16到24岁的青年人失业率为16.2%，比上个月是上升了1.8%。那么下阶段呢，这个推动就业持续稳定，一个呢还是要精准实施宏观政策，推动经济稳定恢复，增加这个就业，加大这个就业岗位，同时加大对小微企业的政策支持，落实好就业优先的政策，支持大学生就业创业，稳定农民工就业，促进就业形势逐渐稳定。关于您提到的这个部分行业，就是你刚才提到的这个对一些这个青年就业的一个影响，同时对政策的出台。目前看我们的就业的这个数据呢，不能够，就是我们因为失业率统计目前还是这个失业统计我们建立时间不长，不能完全准确的反映就是特定政策对特定的行业、特定群体的这个情况。这是关于您的第一个问题。第二个问题就是关于消费的问题。那么消费来看呢，今年呢，消费整体上还保持一个稳步恢复的情况。那么在7月份呢，由于受到部分地区强降雨和一些地方的散发疫情的影响呢，社会消费零售总额的增速呢，同比的2天增速呢都比上月有所回落。但是从累计来看呢，社零呢，2年平均增长呢，这个同比是2年平均增长4.3%，与上个月其实基本上持平，基本上持平。从消费的总的特点来看呢，第一个呢是多数商品类别呢保持了增长。那么1至7月份呢，18类在限额以上商品份额当中呢，18类商品，这个零售额呢2年平均实现了增长。其中呢有9类商品呢，2年平均增速呢超过了10%。那么二是呢，基本生活类和升级类的商品呢较快增长。那么1至7月份呢，粮油食品日用品类2年平均增长分别增长了11.3%和13.2%。那么升级类的这个金银珠宝和体育娱乐用品2年平均分别增长了10.6%和8.4%。三是呢，网上零售的增势稳定。1至7月份，实用商品网上零售额呢9年平均增长了16.7%，比上月份加快了0.2%。总的来看呢，受短期因素影响的这个市场销售有所放缓，但是消费恢复的态势呢有望持续。那么随着这个疫苗接种的扩大，精准防控的这个有效实施，消费的环境呢有望保持总体稳定。那么还有看到的就业的扩大，居民收入增加呢也有利于消费能力的提高。那么消费呢能够保持一个总体上保持一个稳定恢复的态势。谢谢。
继续提问。第二条。
谢谢主持人。看新闻记者提问。国家统计局公布的7月中国制造业采购经济指数PMI为50.4，快50.4，创1年来新低。请问是什么原因导致了 PMI 连续4个月降低走势？此外，有观点认为今年下半年的中国经济复苏将放缓。希望国家统计局对我国经济发展走势做什么判断？
谢谢您的提问。应该说呢，关于 PMI 的这个变化，我们看到了近期的这个疫情的这个变化国外疫情呢实际上有所反弹。那么我们看到呢，不单是国内的情况，就是市场预期呢有所回落。那么从国际上来看呢，全球的制造业和非制造业 PMI 均比上月有所回落，主要还是由于呢这个疫情的影响呢，对于整个这个市场预期的波动。但是总的来看呢，全球经济呢仍然保持一个复苏的态势，国内经济恢复呢态势呢这个失业率恢复的态势呢也没有发生改变这是要讲的。那么对于下阶段中国经济的增长的情况呢， 其实刚才我在前面的也讲下阶段经济运行的这个情况的这个初步的判断。总的看呢，经济运行呢仍然会保持恢复的态势会持续。那么至于您谈到的这个从近期来看，这个经济运行的在阶段的走势，应该说呢，我们保持这个稳定恢复的有较多的支撑啊。无论从投资、消费和经济口的状况，相关的这个运行呢，仍然是有利的。那么从企业层面来看，我们看到呢，上半年啊，这个企业的利润啊，同比增长是66.9%，年平均增长26.6%，财政收入呢，上年也增长22.8%，企业效率的增长这个有利于这个生产的稳定啊，有利于生产的稳定。那么我们看待这个经济运行呢，我们刚才其实也讲了，不仅要看经济增长的开始，我们还要观察